She was the kind of student most people barely noticed. She sat near the back of the music room, close to the window where the afternoon light came in soft and pale. While others laughed, talked loudly, or tried to show off their skills, she stayed quiet. Her hands were often folded on her lap, and her eyes followed everything carefully. She listened more than she spoke. To many, she seemed unsure of herself. To some, she seemed invisible. The school was known for its music program. Parents hoped their children would shine there. Teachers were proud of its long history of awards and performances. The piano room was one of the most respected spaces in the building. The grand piano sat at the center, polished and heavy, as if it carried years of pressure and expectation. Only a few students were allowed to play it during class. Others waited their turn, hoping to be chosen. She had been playing the piano since she was very young, not because someone pushed her, but because it was the one place where she felt calm. At home, the piano was old and slightly out of tune. Some keys were stiff, but none of that mattered to her. She played every day, sometimes early in the morning, sometimes late at night when the house was quiet. She practiced slowly, carefully, repeating the same lines until they felt natural in her hands. Music was not something she used to impress others. It was something she used to understand herself. In class, she never raised her hand first. Even when she knew the answer, she waited. She had learned early on that being loud did not always mean being right. Still, her silence often worked against her. The teacher, a man with a sharp voice and strict posture, believed confidence should be shown openly. He admired students who played boldly, even if they made mistakes. He praised those who took space. Quiet effort, in his eyes, often meant weakness. When he looked at her, he rarely saw a serious musician. He saw someone small, unsure, and easy to overlook. When she played during short practice sessions, he corrected her quickly and moved on. He did not listen long enough to hear the detail in her touch or the care in her timing. He expected little, so he paid little attention. Other students noticed this. Some felt sorry for her. Others quietly agreed with the teacher's opinion. A few thought she simply did not belong in such a competitive place. No one knew how much time she spent practicing alone. No one knew how many times she played the same piece until her fingers ached. No one knew that when she made a mistake, she stayed with it, learning from it instead of avoiding it. After classes, while most students rushed out or gathered in groups, she often stayed behind. If the room was empty and the piano free, she would sit down gently, almost afraid to disturb the silence. She played softly at first, warming up, letting her hands remember what to do. In those moments, she was no longer invisible. The music filled the room, even when no one else was there to hear it. Sometimes a staff member would pass by the door and pause for a moment. The sound would catch their attention, but by the time they looked in, she had already stopped. She did not like being watched. Playing felt personal, almost private. She believed music spoke best when it was honest, not when it was forced. At home, life was simple. There was no talk of fame or success. Her family worked hard, and money was always something to think about. Music lessons had never been formal. Most of what she learned came from listening, watching, and practicing on her own. She borrowed old books, watched recordings when she could, and trusted her ears. Every small improvement felt like a quiet victory. The teacher, however, did not know this. To him, she was just another student who blended into the background. When he planned lessons, he focused on those he believed would represent the school well. Performances, competitions, and recitals were serious matters. Only the strongest students, in his opinion, deserved those chances. As weeks passed, the pressure in class slowly grew. A major recital was approaching, one that many people from outside the school would attend. Parents talked about it. Students whispered about who would be chosen to perform. For some, it was exciting. For others, it was terrifying. She listened to these conversations quietly. Part of her wanted to perform. Another part of her felt she did not belong on such a stage. Not because she lacked skill, but because she had been made to feel small for so long. Each time the teacher overlooked her, it added weight to that feeling. During one class, the teacher announced that he would be watching students more closely. He said only those who showed real potential would be considered. His eyes moved across the room, stopping on the usual favorites. When they passed over her, she felt it again, that familiar tight feeling in her chest. She lowered her gaze and told herself to keep practicing, no matter what happened. What no one realized was that her quiet nature was not weakness, it was patience. She believed that growth did not need an audience. She believed effort mattered more than approval. Every note she practiced was built on discipline, not ego. Every mistake taught her something new. The piano room, the strict teacher, the competitive students, all of it was shaping her in ways others could not see. While some played to be noticed, she played to improve. While others chased praise, she chased understanding. As the day ended and the building slowly emptied, she once again sat alone at the piano. The light outside the window faded, and the room grew still. Her fingers moved with quiet confidence, pressing each key with care. In that moment, there was no teacher, no class, no judgment. There was only the music, steady and honest, waiting for its time to be heard. The days leading up to the recital slowly changed the feeling inside the music room. Practice sessions became longer. Voices became quieter. Even the students who usually joked around seemed more serious. Everyone knew the teacher was watching closely now. Every note mattered. Every mistake felt heavier than before. She felt this change too. Each time she entered the room, her shoulders tightened a little. The teacher walked back and forth more often, stopping behind students as they played. When someone impressed him, he nodded with approval. When someone failed, he did not hide his disappointment. His words could be sharp, and once spoken, they stayed in the air. When it was her turn to play during class, she approached the piano calmly. Her heart beat faster, but her hands were steady. She began the piece she had practiced many times. She focused on the sound, not the people watching. For a moment, she forgot where she was, but she did not get far. The teacher raised his hand, stopping her in the middle of a phrase. He sighed loudly and shook his head. He said her playing lacked confidence. He said she was too careful, too quiet. He asked her if she was afraid of the piano. A few students shifted in their seats. Someone let out a small laugh before quickly stopping. She felt her face grow warm. She opened her mouth to speak but closed it again. She did not know how to explain that careful did not mean weak, that quiet did not mean empty. Instead, she nodded slightly and stepped away from the piano. The teacher continued speaking. He said that performance required courage, that the stage was not a place for hesitation. His words were not loud, but they were firm, clear. They left little room for argument. He then called another student forward, one he clearly trusted more. She returned to her seat and kept her eyes down. Inside, something stirred. Not anger, not sadness exactly, but a deep discomfort. It was the feeling of being misunderstood and having no way to correct it. After class, the room emptied quickly. She stayed behind as usual, but this time, she did not go straight to the piano. She sat still for a while, listening to the quiet. The teacher's words replayed in her mind. Too quiet, too careful, afraid. She wondered if he was right. That evening at home, she played longer than usual. She did not rush. She went back to the basics, listening closely to every sound. She thought about expression, about strength, about what courage in music really meant. To her, courage was not volume. It was honesty. It was staying true to the piece, even when no one noticed. The next few classes followed the same pattern. The teacher rarely called on her. When he did, it was brief. His focus stayed on the students he believed would stand on the recital stage. They played louder now, faster, trying to impress him. Some succeeded. Some made more mistakes than before. She watched all of this quietly. She noticed how pressure changed people, how some became tense, how others lost the joy they once had. She reminded herself why she played in the first place. One afternoon, the teacher announced that he would make a short list of possible performers. He said it would be based on what he had seen so far. As he spoke, he wrote names on the board. Each name felt like a door closing for those not chosen. Her name was not written. She did not look surprised, but the disappointment still reached her. It settled quietly, like dust. She packed her things slowly, giving herself time to breathe. She told herself it was fine. She would keep playing, with or without the stage. As she walked toward the exit, the teacher called her back. She stopped and turned, unsure of what to expect. He looked at her for a moment before speaking. He said that while she was disciplined, she lacked presence. He said that some people were meant to play for themselves, not for others. His tone was calm, almost kind, but the message was clear. She thanked him politely and left outside. The air felt colder. She walked home slowly, thinking about his words. Meant to play for herself. Was that really such a bad thing? She thought about the empty piano room, the late evenings, the music filling the space with no audience. Those moments mattered to her still. A small voice inside her asked what it would feel like to be heard. Over the next few days, something inside her shifted. She practiced with a new focus. Not to prove the teacher wrong, not to earn a place on the list, but to challenge herself. She pushed through difficult sections. She explored dynamics she had avoided before. She allowed herself to play with more strength, without losing control. One evening, while she was practicing alone at school, she did not notice the door open behind her. She was deep into a piece, her hands moving freely, her posture relaxed but confident. The sound filled the room, clear and steady. Someone stood quietly near the door, listening. She finished the piece and sat still, letting the last note fade. When she turned, she realized the teacher had been there the whole time. For a brief moment, neither of them spoke. His expression was unreadable. He nodded once and said nothing before leaving. She sat there for a long time after that, unsure of what it meant. But for the first time, she felt something different. Not doubt, not fear, a quiet certainty that she had more to give. The recital was getting closer, and whether she stood on that stage or not, she knew she would be ready. After that evening, she could not stop thinking about the moment the teacher had stood at the door. He had not praised her. He had not criticized her either. That silence stayed with her longer than any sharp comment ever had. It felt heavy, but also open, as if something was waiting to happen. The days before the recital moved quickly now. Posters were placed around the school. Chairs were stacked and moved into the main hall. A stage was prepared, and the grand piano was rolled carefully into position. Every detail reminded students that the event was real and close. She continued attending classes as usual. Nothing changed on the surface. The teacher still focused mostly on the selected students. They practiced on the stage, adjusting to the space, learning how to project their sound. She sat in the audience seats during those sessions, listening closely. She imagined herself there, not with fear, but with curiosity. One afternoon, the teacher announced that one performer had fallen sick and might not recover in time. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. There would be an open spot. He said he would decide what to do in the next few days. Her heart beat faster, but she kept her face calm. She did not allow herself to hope too much. Experience had taught her to expect very little from situations like this. That night, she practiced at home until her fingers felt tired but steady. She played through the piece she loved most, the one she never brought to class. It was not flashy. It did not rush. It told a quiet story, one that grew slowly and stayed with the listener. She imagined playing it on the stage, letting the room breathe with her. The next class felt different. The teacher seemed distracted. He listened carefully, more than before. When students finished, he asked more questions. When it was her turn to play, he did not interrupt her right away. She played with calm focus. Her posture was relaxed, her touch controlled. She did not try to impress. She simply played the music as she understood it. When she finished, the room stayed silent for a moment. The teacher cleared his throat. He said nothing about confidence this time. He only said she had improved. The words were simple, but they landed deeply. After class, he asked her to stay behind. She waited while the others left. The door closed softly, and the room felt larger than usual. He stood near the piano, arms crossed, looking thoughtful. Finally, he spoke. He said there might be a chance for her to perform at the recital. Not a promise, he made clear. Just a possibility. He said she would need to be ready. Very ready. She nodded. She did not smile. She did not thank him too quickly. She only said she would prepare. From that day on, her practice changed again. She focused not only on accuracy, but on connection. She imagined the audience, not as judges, but as people willing to listen. She practiced walking to the piano, sitting down, starting calmly. She practiced recovering from mistakes, not letting them break her focus. At school, some students began to notice her more. They saw her staying late, arriving early. A few asked what she was practicing. She answered politely but briefly. She did not want attention. She wanted readiness. The teacher observed her quietly now. He no longer corrected her quickly. Sometimes he let her finish an entire piece. Other times, he asked her to repeat a section and explain her choices. It was challenging, but fair. One afternoon, during a rehearsal on the stage, the teacher asked her to sit in the audience while the others played. She listened closely, learning from their strengths and their mistakes. When her turn came, he surprised everyone. He asked her to play. She felt a sudden wave of nerves, but she stood up calmly. She walked to the stage, aware of every step. The hall felt large and empty, but not threatening. She sat at the piano and took a breath. She began. The sound carried differently in the hall. Each note traveled farther, fuller. She adjusted naturally, letting the space guide her. She played with steady emotion, not forcing anything. When she finished, the teacher nodded slowly. He said nothing to the class, but his expression had changed. That evening, he posted an updated list outside the music room. She stopped when she saw it. Her name was there. She read it twice to be sure. Her heart raced, but she stayed still. A few students noticed and looked at her with surprise. Some smiled, others said nothing. She walked home that day feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Not because she had been chosen, but because she had earned it in her own way. At home, she sat at the piano and played quietly. She thought about the stage, the lights, the people who would listen. She thought about the teacher, and how his opinion no longer defined her. The recital was only days away now. She knew there would be pressure. She knew there could be mistakes. But she also knew something else. She was ready. And when she finally stepped onto that stage, she would not be there to prove anyone wrong. She would be there to let the music speak. The day of the recital arrived quietly, almost gently. There was no loud announcement in the morning, no sudden rush of excitement. Still, everyone felt it. The hallways seemed longer. Conversations were shorter. Even the air felt different. She arrived early, carrying her music carefully, though she already knew every note by heart. The hall was mostly empty when she stepped inside. Rows of chairs faced the stage, waiting. The grand piano stood under the soft stage lights, its surface clean and still. She paused for a moment, taking it all in. Backstage, the other performers warmed up. Some stretched their fingers, others played short, fast runs, trying to calm their nerves. A few whispered to each other. She found a quiet corner and sat down, closing her eyes. She breathed slowly, letting her thoughts settle. She was nervous, but it was not the kind that made her shake. It felt deeper, steady, like a current under the surface. She reminded herself why she was there. Not for praise, not for approval. For the music. The audience began to arrive. Parents, teachers, students from other classes, and guests filled the seats. The sound of soft talking spread through the hall. Programs were handed out. The lights dimmed slightly. From backstage, she could hear the first performer announced. Applause followed. The recital had begun. She listened closely as each student played. Some performances were strong, others were uneven. A few showed nerves clearly. The teacher sat near the front, posture straight, watching everything with careful eyes. He nodded at times, frowned at others. His presence felt heavy, even from a distance. As the recital moved forward, her turn came closer. Her hands felt warm now, ready. She stood up when her piece was announced and walked toward the stage. The lights felt brighter than she expected. For a brief moment, the audience blurred into one soft shape. She could feel her heartbeat, but it did not control her. She bowed slightly, then sat at the piano. She placed her hands on the keys and waited. That pause mattered. Then she began. The first notes were gentle, almost quiet. The hall leaned into the sound. She played with care, letting each phrase breathe. Her fingers moved smoothly, guided by years of practice that no one had seen. As the piece unfolded, the music grew. Not louder just to be loud, but fuller, stronger. She let emotion guide her, not fear. She trusted herself. The audience grew still. No one shifted in their seats. No one whispered. The sound filled the space, clear and honest. It was not flashy, but it held attention. It told a story. She forgot about the teacher. She forgot about the room. She was inside the music now, moving with it, shaping it naturally. There was a moment in the middle of the piece that had always been difficult. In the past, she had played it carefully, almost holding back. This time, she leaned into it. Her hands did not hesitate. The notes flowed with confidence. The teacher noticed. He leaned forward slightly, his expression changing. The quiet student he had once dismissed was not playing like someone afraid. She was playing like someone who understood exactly what she was doing. As the final section approached, she softened the sound again, bringing the piece back to its quiet beginning. The last note lingered in the air, then faded. She stayed still, for a heartbeat. The hall was silent. Then applause broke out. It was not polite applause. It was full and real. Some people stood, others clapped longer than usual. She stood up slowly and bowed, her face calm, her hands steady. She glanced toward the teacher without meaning to. He was standing. After the recital ended, people gathered in the hall, talking excitedly. Some students were surrounded by family. Others packed their things quietly. She stayed near the stage, unsure of where to go. A few people approached her. They told her they were moved by her performance. They said it felt honest. She thanked them politely. Still processing everything. The teacher walked toward her. Up close. He looked different, less certain, less sharp. He spoke quietly. He said her performance was strong. He said he had been wrong about her. He did not say much more, but he did not need to. She nodded. There was no anger in her. No need to say anything else. The music had already spoken. Later that evening, after the hall was empty and the chairs were stacked away, she returned to the piano room one last time. The building was quiet again. She sat at the piano and played softly, just for herself. The same keys, the same room, but everything felt different. She was no longer invisible, and she knew now that she never had been. The days after the recital felt quieter, but in a different way than before. It was not the silence of being unnoticed. It was the calm that comes after something important has passed. She returned to school with the same routine, the same schedule, yet everything felt lighter. People looked at her differently now. Some smiled when she walked by. Others nodded with a kind of respect that had not been there before. A few students stopped her in the hallway to say they had enjoyed her performance. She listened politely, thanked them, and moved on. She did not let the attention change her pace. In the music room, things shifted slowly. The teacher no longer spoke over her when she played. He listened. Sometimes he asked questions instead of giving commands. His tone was calmer, less sharp. It was clear that something had changed, not just in how he saw her, but in how he thought about his own judgments. During one class, he spoke to everyone about the recital. He said that music was not only about power or volume. He said it was also about patience, control, and understanding. His eyes rested on her for a moment before moving on. He did not single her out, but the message was clear. She continued practicing the same way she always had, alone when possible, focused, careful. The applause had been meaningful, but it was not what kept her at the piano. What mattered was the feeling she had when she played, the sense of being fully present. At home, her family noticed the change too, not in her behavior, but in her confidence. She spoke a little more. She smiled a little easier. When she played, her posture was relaxed, her sound steady. They did not talk much about the recital, but they did not need to. They could hear it in her music. Weeks passed. New lessons began. New pieces were assigned. The pressure of the recital faded, replaced by daily work. Some students who had once been confident struggled now that the spotlight was gone. Others grew quieter. She stayed consistent. One afternoon, the teacher asked her to help a younger student who was having trouble with a piece. She hesitated at first, unsure if she was the right person. He told her she had a good ear and a calm way of explaining things. She sat beside the student and listened carefully. She did not rush. She pointed out small details, showed how to slow down difficult parts, how to breathe between phrases. The student relaxed and began to improve. As she watched, she realized something. The same patience that had once been mistaken for weakness was now a strength others could learn from. The teacher observed quietly from across the room. When the lesson ended, he nodded with approval. There was no pride in his expression, only respect. Toward the end of the term, another performance opportunity came up. This time, the teacher did not hesitate. He asked if she would like to take part. He made it clear that the choice was hers. She thought about it for a moment before agreeing, not because she needed to prove anything, but because she wanted to share the music again. When the day came, she played well, not perfectly, but honestly. There were no surprises this time, no tension in the air, just music, steady and clear. Afterward, she packed her things quietly and left the hall without waiting for praise. Outside, the sky was soft with evening light. She took a deep breath and smiled to herself. She thought back to the first day she had walked into the music room, unnoticed and unsure. She remembered the sharp words, the moments of doubt, the times she had almost believed she was not enough. She realized now that none of those moments had broken her. They had shaped her. The teacher never tried to humiliate her again. In fact, he became more careful with his words, more aware of the quiet students in the room. The change did not happen overnight, but it happened. As for her, she kept playing. She played in empty rooms and full halls. She played when people listened and when no one did. The music remained the same place of truth it had always been. She learned that being quiet did not mean being small, that strength did not always need to announce itself, and that sometimes the most powerful sound comes from someone who waited patiently to be heard. In the end, it was never about proving the teacher wrong. It was about staying true to herself, and that was the greatest performance she would ever give.